welcome everyone to the 68th Open NLP and Hypnosis Meet Up. Tonight we are joined by our guest, Helen Dos Santos. Helen is a Wellbeing and Resilience life coach, a trainer, an NLP Master Practitioner, and a Certified Havening Practitioner who specializes in working people with mental health issues. Providing life coaching, public speaking, team building, training and one-to-one support to councils, businesses and the education sector throughout the UK. Tonight, Helen has graciously offered to share with us what havening is and how she incorporates this modality into her work with individual clients and groups. So without any further ado, welcome Helen.
Thank you. Thanks, Orlando. And it's absolutely wonderful to be here. And the fact that people are so interested in havening, because it's not a very well-known technique. And for me, it fits really quite nicely with coaching. And I know Orlando mentioned I specialize in working with people with mental health problems, but even at that level, you can still use this for all sorts of different reasons. So let me start off by just explaining and introducing the whole concept of havening to you. So just to give you a little bit about its origins. Originally, havening, now brace yourself, was known as the amygdala depotentiation therapy, ADT. Now, that would put off most clients if you were then going to tell them that was the technique you were going to use with them. But it was created by Dr. Ronald Rudin in the States, who's a medical doctor with a specialism in neuroscience. And he also dealt with emotional trauma. Now, what he did over time was he observed a colleague receiving another psychosensory therapy, which was EFT, which I'm sure you've probably all heard of. And he was intrigued by the effect and the result that this person had managed to achieve. And so as a result, with this intrigue, he explored the science behind this, along with his brother, Stephen Rudin, and they spent the next 10 years researching into all the science, and then developed this very powerful and effective havening technique. So what is it exactly? What is havening? So it's a healing modality. It's designed to help individuals overcome problems, and it can vary from things like trauma right through to relaxation techniques and helping with belief change and setting goals, stress resilience, and that's where it fits really quite nicely with the coaching side of things. But havening techniques, as I say, belong to a much larger group of therapies. So you'll probably be aware of EMDR and other techniques that deal with emotions, moods, and behavior. So this alternative therapy, as I say, it's based on amygdala depotentiation, which helps people solve and address psychological problems. And that can be anything from phobias, post-traumatic stress, right through to anxiety, depression, panic. What havening does, it involves eliciting brain waves by applying the havening touch, and I'll demonstrate that to you in a moment, which is proven to act directly on our receptors in the brain where trauma tends to be stored. And what the havening touch does is down regulates the emotional charge from any particular situation. And it's mostly when you're using the havening techniques, you use distraction techniques with the clients, and that's when you lose the emotional charge. This means that, in a sense, when I'm working with a client, particularly with something as extreme as trauma, you don't have to keep the client in the memory with upsetting and distressing feelings. So this allows me to work in some cases content free. I don't even have to know what the presenting concerns are. And so as I say, at least from the client's point of view, they're not immersed in those horrific, uncomfortable feelings. So how does it all work? I've kind of covered a little bit of the science with you, but Havening works through a change agent. A delta brainwave is produced when we're generating this sort of smoothing, gentle Havening touch, either on the palms of the hands. We can apply it to the upper arms and coming down from the shoulders down to the elbows, and also on our face. So we can, I'll just take my glasses off for a moment, literally be applying it like that. So gentle, almost like washing your face, and even across your cheeks, under the eyes. And all that movement is producing these delta waves. This interacts with the voltage-dependent calcium on the calcium channel of the glutamate activated neuron in the lateral amygdala. And we know it's our amygdala that fires off our fight or flight instinct when we're in a stressful situation. So the approach of using the Havening technique is about applying the soothing touch. It's simple, it's straightforward. And as actually, if any of you are parents with young children, where perhaps the children have been outdoors playing and they've fallen over, or they've scratched themselves or something, they've come running in and they're crying. As a parent, you would naturally hug them, and you'd probably do that soothing thing. So our most basic instincts know that that is really quite soothing, not realizing that there's a whole load of science behind it. But as I say, this means that any Havening sessions can be provided virtually, because obviously this evening we're going to get you doing this yourselves. I've worked with quite a few people now, all over the UK as well as Europe, and literally being able to guide them through the Havening process. So what exactly can it help with? And my understanding is most of you are NLP trained. I'm not necessarily sure if you're all coaches or whether you apply the NLP into different areas of your working life. But Havening is, as I say, it's a process whereby the client doesn't even have to know what the root cause is. Havening allows the work to be done with a particular emotion, to clear that out the way without needing to go into any sort of related experience. And the effect of the Havening touch is that it produces this calm, pleasant state. So it can be used to work on, as I say, positive things, behaviors, goals, as well as build up resilience, self-confidence. It can help initiate actions towards goals, as well as coping mechanisms, and also reduce stress. It also helps to sometimes break the pattern of anxiety. And that is really just naming a few of the examples of how we would apply Havening. And again, just to share with you a couple of examples of this. I worked with somebody last year who had found their daughter had tried to take their life in their bedroom, 15 years old. Dad had gone in just to check on his daughter, expecting her to just be watching TV in the evening, and found she had tried to take an overdose of tablets. So in that moment, he had experienced trauma finding his daughter, and really just 2 one-hour sessions had taken the charge out of that situation for him. Equally, I've worked with somebody who's sort of, her goal is to lose weight. And what we were doing was informational Havening. And I have to credit the lovely Tony Burgess, who created informational Havening. And if you think about it, as human beings, what we're absolutely award-winning for doing is saying, well, what if I can't do that? And what if I'm not confident? So usually when we do the what if, it has a negative statement at the end. And with the Havening, what we're doing is we actually work with the client to understand what it is they want to achieve. And but as I say, usually it's a negative statement. So what if I can lose weight? What if I can achieve my weight goal? What if I have the persistence and determination? But as I say, by applying the what if, we're still sort of suggesting there's doubt there, because you don't just reframe something. And I know in NLP, we're really good at reframing things. You don't just reframe it and feel it. And actually by applying the Havening, whilst getting the client to literally go through these affirmations, we're starting to change some of the brain chemistry, and we shift some of the wording as well. So we might eventually drop the what if, and it could become, I'm curious about feeling confident, or whatever it is you're working on. And then you'd move that down to, I deserve to be confident. And then you just listen to the tone. And again, I know with NLP, we're very good at listening to tonality. And what you find is as the brain chemistry is changing, so is the tone. And you just know when to drop the statement, and it just becomes, I am confident. I am so confident. And then I actually get them to say, I am confident because, and they find all the reasons why they are. So it's not as if it's a fake statement anymore. So we've gone from that doubt of, what if I can't be confident, to I am confident, and the client's finding all the reasons why they are. But with applying the Havening touch as well, you're actually changing the neuro pathways and the brain chemistry as well. And that is where the magic happens with Havening. Okay, I realize I've been jabbering on now for a few minutes.
Everyone is well used to someone jabbering on here, Helen, have no fear.
Are there any questions at all?
My first question to you, Helen, is what motivated your decision to train as a Havening Techniques Certified Practitioner?
Okay, I think, again, because of the work I was doing with people with mental health, of course, the NLP tools and the timeline therapy and the hypnotherapy help enormously. But this just took that to a completely different level. And the people I did my training with are actually NLP trainers as well. And some of the linguistics just fit so beautifully with Havening. But, when you talk about trauma, and the amount of people that come to me and sort of say, well, my husband left me, or my marriage is broken down, or I've gone through a bereavement, the circumstances around those could actually end up being traumatic. Now, before I did the Havening, if you'd said to me, what's trauma? I would have said, oh, it's something as bad as a terrorist attack, or somebody being held up at knife point down a dark alleyway. I would have described it as something quite uncommon and unusual. But actually, that's not how the brain encodes trauma. And so with that, I've been able now to recognize with the client where something may have been encoded as trauma. And Havening now just takes this work to a completely different level. And those people then become free.
So you made a differentiation, I think was it Tony Burgess, was it, with informational havening?
Yeah.
Could you explain the difference? I'm just a little lost there with havening and informational havening. Are they the same thing now taught, or is it a separate extension?
So there's several different categories that fall under havening. You can use it for different things. You would use event havening to reduce or eliminate trauma. You would use the informational havening where there was doubt, and perhaps somebody might have a goal that they want to achieve, and there was some doubt creeping in about how they would achieve that goal. So that's where you could use affirmational, there's outcome havening. So there's quite a few different techniques, and it's when you're working with a client and you've built that rapport and understood what it is they want to get out of the sessions, you then become little bit more comfortable about understanding which of those techniques would work best for them.
Okay, we've got a question here in the chat from Finton. Are you eliciting oxytocin using the Havening touch? It feels to me that you are.
Okay, great question. What you're doing when you're applying the Havening touch is you're producing delta waves. They are low frequency, and yes, you're quite right. Through that, you are, the technical term is depotentiating some of the brain cells and taking out the emotional charge. When something happens, so as I say, something traumatic, the way the brain encodes that is the amygdala fires off the fight or flight instinct. And in those moments, all the emotions that we feel are attached to the brain cells. So yeah. Okay, hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
There's a thumbs up, so we'll go with a yes. So then the differences between event havening, informational havening, and outcome havening, and others if there are they the differences between those things? Are they different processes of touch or different processes of linguistics, or both?
No, the touch is exactly the same. It's different linguistics. Yeah, absolutely. And this is very much client-led, client-centered. Yeah.
So as a practitioner, what would lead you to the decision of choosing to use the Havening touch with the face as opposed to the arms, or how does that decision come about?
Well, I leave that entirely to the client. I would demonstrate all of them. I mean, one of the things with Havening is you can haven the client themselves, but I've done my training in the pandemic. So of course, in fact, it's only in the next couple of weeks, I will be attending some live training where we are taught how to haven the client. But if I was working with someone who had, say, been physically abused, they might actually not want somebody actually applying the touch to them. So they would probably feel a bit more safe and secure applying it to themselves. So the touch doesn't change. It's the face, the arms, the hands. If I was working with somebody, I might use bilateral eye movement as well. So, and as I say, that's where it's been an absolutely wonderful technique to use on Zoom, because I've sat here and worked with clients in Spain and got them havening. And so long as I can perhaps just make sure they're, and I can see them from the sort of shoulders down and make sure they are applying the touch appropriately, then you're good to go. It works beautifully.
So just on the difference between someone applying it to themselves or having it applied by another person, do you know, is there a measurable difference between those two factors?
No, it'll work just as well. I mean, the client, if you're havening a client, you've got to obviously check with them that the pressure feels okay and the speed feels okay. I mean, some people kind of go hell for leather applying the touch. Others do it very slowly and gently. So it's what works for the individual.
Is there an optimal speed / pressure for creating that delta variant or delta variance? We've all heard enough about delta variances. Apologies, team.
Delta waves.
Is there a rate and speed or a pressure that is known to be optimal for creating the delta brainwave environment?
I think so long as they're making sure they're using the palms of their hands, that you'll get the production of the delta waves.
Okay, we have another question here in the chat from Maya. How long does it take to have havening sessions to overcome a trauma?
That very much depends on the client and how embedded the trauma is. The gentleman I mentioned who had found his daughter, we did 2 1-hour sessions. So you're not looking at 10, 12 sessions necessarily. This is quite fast working, but it just depends how deep rooted that is. And quite often depends if that trauma then links to other events later on in that person's life as to how much you would tend to have to work with them.
So how many sessions would you on average work with a client trauma related, which I know is a very wide spectrum, but I know it's as myself and many others here, it's a very common question we get asked. Well, how many sessions do I need before you have very little? And what would an average answer be to that client?
I would probably sort of start with about 2. And then it would, after each session, I tend to check in with the client at least the next day to see how they're feeling, how they're doing. And even when you've anticipated there might be 2, it could mean they do actually need more. Just, as I say, it just depends how deep rooted it is. With event havening, which is the technique used for trauma, that wouldn't be something the client would endeavor to try and do on their own. Whereas, if you were using it as a relaxation tool, that you could, but as I say, you would want to be guided with a practitioner to go through anything traumatic. So it's not as simple as how long is a piece of string.
Oh, that's cool. Another question here in the chat from Rich. How will the client know that the event has been dealt with?
When they are able to think back to it. So a lot of the clients, when they're talking about perhaps a particular memory, you will see them starting to get upset. They'll sort of be immersed back into that event, and the upset will be very visual. At the end of a havening session, you can take them back to that, and quite often you get people sort of saying it feels vague, or it's the emotional charge has gone. That's the important thing. You don't ever get rid of the memory, but it may become faded or vaguer, but more distant. And as I say, the emotional charge would have gone.
So on the for a client that just in your language there, that the event may become faded, or as the emotional charge, other things change. Is that something that you as a practitioner lead with your havening skills, or do you lead it with a multiplicity of your skills, or is it not something you lead at all?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question there, Orlando. Sorry.
That's all right. The removing the charge from the trauma, from the event, from the memory.
Yeah.
As you said, as that charge removes, it may fade, it may Do you lead that process as a practitioner, or do you just allow it to happen and see where it goes?
No, you lead that. And this is where, as I say, with trauma, the client has to have a practitioner to work with them. It's not something they would do. So you're guiding them through the process to literally take out that emotional charge from that memory or that event.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
All righty. Have we got any more questions from the audience? Oh, here we go. From Judith, if you don't go back to the trauma, how do the brain of the client relate the havening to it to solve this trauma. So if you don't go back to the trauma, how does the brain of the client relate the havening to the solving of the trauma? Is that what we're after there, Judith?
Yes.
Okay, so when you've done a session with a client, you would ask them to go back to that memory and then sort of say, you know, and how does that feel now? You might even take a score. So, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, you would perhaps take that score right at the beginning, and usually it is quite high from an emotional point of view, and then you would get them to just check in with you know, using that sort of scale to see where they were.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question.
Very cool. Okay. Well, I think you've covered all the questions so far there, Helen. Is there anything that you would like to add before the next thing happens?
Before the next thing happens? No, not really. I mean, I'm very grateful for all the questions, and it's wonderful that there is so much interest. And I say, if anybody does want to know more and speak to me on a one-to-one basis, or even explore any training, then please do get in touch, and I can sort of point you in the right direction to have conversations with, certainly with the trainer that I did my training with, who was absolutely amazing.
Very cool. Richard's just asked, how do you find doing group sessions compared to one-to-one?
Well, I would only do relaxation. I would only use Havening for a relaxation in a group. I wouldn't try and address trauma or anything else. So yeah, just so it's really easy. When I've done this face to face with an audience in front of me, I actually find they get relaxed very, very quickly, and almost I'm still taking them through the guided mindfulness, and they've sort of virtually stopped their havening because they've just got so relaxed and they can't be bothered.
Oh, here we go. From Tufan, if you're using NLP techniques as well, do you have a decision criteria for traumas? For instance, havening or NLP timeline therapy using current resources to heal with trauma?
So with trauma, my go-to would be havening, and usually it can be a one-off event. With the timeline therapy, I think that's a beautiful technique, but it's more of, for me, it's more of a general emotional detox, addressing that sort of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And quite often people want to experience both, and that's absolutely fine.
Where's Tufan gone? Oh, I can't see him, but if you've got if that doesn't answer your question, Tufan, feel free to fire another one into the chat. Okay. Well, without any further ado, thank you for the answers. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I thought we'll do now is I'm actually going to unspotlight myself and give the whole screen to Helen so that she can guide us all through an experience of mindfulness with havening. So I shall.
So we've been talking about havening and how I merge that with my coaching practice and the NLP techniques. So I'm going to invite you to partake in a mindfulness session and incorporate the havening touch into that. But before I start, let me just demonstrate the havening moves to you. So what we do is we apply the touch through our hands, and this is how we generate those delta waves. So you can apply the touch to your face, just gently stroking your face. You can go across your cheeks as well. And when we're doing this, we're producing those delta waves when that we generate when we're asleep at night. Now, if you're not comfortable applying the touch to your face, you can actually stroke your arms. Now, some people like to go, and I would always encourage you, start from the top of the shoulders. You can come all the way down, stroking right down to the palms of your hands. Some people are just quite happy to come as far down to the elbows, which is perfectly fine as well. And if you find you're applying the touch to your face and your arms, and they get a bit achy after a while, that's fine. Just then relax and just apply the Havening touch to the palms of your hands. So I would encourage you, as we commence this and getting yourself nice and comfortable, that you try the Havening touch as we go into the mindfulness session. Now, what might happen is that as we go through this, you'll find yourself getting more and more relaxed to the point that you'll just slow the Havening down. And it's quite possible you will have even stopped before I finish. That is perfectly fine. But what you can do after this session is try it at night. If you struggle to go off to sleep, try it when you're going off to bed, or even lying in bed. You can try it anytime you feel a bit stressed. Just take 5 minutes out, close your eyes, think of something really nice, and apply the Havening touch. So as I say, I'd like to invite you now just to sit really comfortably in your seat, your back nice and straight, your head held nice and erect on your neck, and your shoulders, just allow your shoulders to relax, and place your hands comfortably on your lap for the moment. And then close your eyes and just bring your attention to the flow of your breathing. Feeling each in-breath and each out-breath. Just observing your breathing without trying to change it or regulate it in any way. Allowing your body to be still. Just sitting this moment with a sense of dignity, a sense of resolve, and a sense of being complete. This very moment with your posture reflecting that sense of wholeness. Now I'd like to invite you to commence the Havening touch, applying it where you're most comfortable, at a pressure and a pace that's comfortable for you. And as you continue doing that, I want you to picture in your mind's eye, as best you can, the most beautiful mountain that you know or have seen or can imagine. Just holding the image of that mountain in your mind's eye and letting it gradually become into greater focus. Observing now the mountain's overall shape and its lofty peak high in the sky, the large root, the large base rooted in the rock of the earth's crust. Perhaps it has steep or gentle sloping sides. Just noticing how massive it is, how solid, how unmoving, how beautiful from afar and up close. And perhaps your mountain has snow at the top and trees at the lower slopes. Perhaps it has one prominent peak, or maybe a series of peaks, or a plateau. Whatever its shape or appearance, you're just sitting and breathing the image of this mountain, observing it, noticing its qualities, and when you feel ready, seeing if you can bring the mountain into your own body, so that the body sitting here and the mountain in your mind's eye become one, so that as you sit here, you share in the massiveness and the stillness of the mountain. You become the mountain, rooted in your sitting posture. Your head becomes the lofty peak, supported by the rest of your body. Your shoulders and arms, the sides of the mountain, and your trunk and legs, the solid base, rooted to your chair, experiencing your body a sense of uplift from deep within your pelvis and spine. And with each breath, as you continue sitting, becoming a little more a breathing mountain, unwavering in your stillness, completely what you are, beyond words and thought, a centered, rooted, unmoving presence. And now as you sit here, becoming aware of the fact that the sun travels across the sky, the light, the shadows and the colors are changing virtually moment by moment. Night follows day, and day follows night. A canopy of stars, the moon, then the sun. Through it all, the mountain just sits, experiencing a change in each moment, constantly changing, yet always just being itself. It remains still as the seasons flow into one another, and as the weather changes moment by moment, day by day, but calmness abiding all change. In summer, there's no snow on the mountain, except perhaps the very high peaks. In autumn, the mountain may wear a coat of brilliant fire colors, and in winter, a blanket of snow and ice. In any season, it may find itself at times enshrouded in clouds or fog, or pelted by freezing rain. People may come to see the mountain and comment on how beautiful it is, or how it's not a good day to see the mountain. And none of this matters at all to the mountain. At all times, it just remains its essential self. Clouds may come and clouds may go. The mountain's magnificence and beauty are not changed one bit by the way people see it or by the weather. Seen or unseen, in sun, clouds, heat, cold, day or night, it just sits, being itself. At at times visited by violent storms, buffeted by snow and rain and winds of unthinkable magnitude. But through it all, the mountain continues to sit unmoved by the weather, by what happens on the surface, by the world of appearances. And in the same way, as we sit in our mindfulness practice, we can learn to experience the mountain. We can embody the same unwavering stillness and rootedness in the face of everything that changes in our own lives, over seconds, over hours, over years. In our lives and in our mindfulness practice, we constantly experience the changing nature of mind and body, and of the outer world. We have our own periods of light and darkness, our moments of colour and moments of drabness. Certainly, we experience storms of varying intensity and violence in the outer world and in our own minds and bodies. We endure periods of darkness and pain, as well as moments of joy. And even in our own appearance, there are changes constantly, experiencing a weather of its own. But by becoming the mountain in our mindfulness practice, we can link up with its strength and stability and adopt it for our own. We can use its energies to support our energy, to encounter each moment with mindfulness and clarity. It may help us to see that our own thoughts and feelings, our preoccupations, our emotional storms and crises, even the things that happen to us, are very much like the weather on the mountain. We tend to take it all personally, but its strongest characteristic is impersonal. The weather of our own lives is not to be ignored or denied. It is to be encountered, honored, felt, known for what it is, and held in awareness. And in holding it in this way, we come to know a deeper silence and stillness and wisdom. Mountains have this much to teach us, and so much more, if we come to listen. And as this practice comes to an end, you might give yourself credit for having spent this time nourishing yourself in this deep way of dwelling in this state of non-doing, in this state of just being, for having intentionally made time for yourself to simply be who you are. As you gradually now bring your awareness back into the room, allow the benefits of this practice to expand into every aspect of your life. And when you feel ready, just perhaps wiggle your fingers and toes. Start to just move slightly. And taking a nice deep breath. Open your eyes. And if you feel inclined, have a lovely big stretch. And welcome back. And if you would like to know more about Havening, please get in touch with me or have a look at the Havening website, which is www.havening.org. And there's loads of information there for you. I hope you feel calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Thank you.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Helen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm very tempted to say very little. And from the looks on screen and the notes that are coming up in the chat there, I feel that the way I feel is quite reflected amongst the room.
Oh, lovely. Okay, that's great. I mean, I was going to say, you know, if anybody's got any further questions or comments, I'm happy to take them.
Well, given the mood of the room and how everyone's feeling, you've done your work well, Helen. And on behalf of everyone, thank you very much for coming along this evening and for your presentation. And absolutely thank you for that experience. I can see the appreciation on screen and coming up in the notes. That's wonderful. For anyone that would like to contact Helen, I will pop Helen's contact details in the WhatsApp group. So if you want to get hold of her for any reason whatsoever, you're absolutely welcome to. She's provided me with her telephone number and email address. So feel free to email, telephone, and text her to your heart's delight. And though, yeah, you'll all have that in the WhatsApp group. Helen, thank you very much. Would you like to leave us with any parting words?
No, just I'm glad you've got something out of it, and feel free as well to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, whichever media platform you use.
Wonderful. And I'd also like to pop a quick thank you out to Rich. It was actually Rich that met Helen and then offered to introduce Helen and myself so that she could come along and join us for the evening. So thank you for that, Rich. Thank you, everybody. I think at that point now is a very appropriate time to have an extended 10.5-minute break this evening. I'm personally going to go and get some cool water, and I may drink some, I may splash it on my face just to sprite up a little, but absolutely wonderful, Helen. And I thank you for your time this evening, and I will be in touch with you in the coming week, and we'll talk about some other things.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and I hope you all have a wonderful night's sleep, if nothing else.